Hello!
Hello, AOS fans!
It's the agents of Harrow Deep.
And in this video, Pete and I have now played a couple of games of the new Warband and the new Illusory Might decks. We wanted to quickly do a wash-up of our thoughts and let you know what we think. It's literally after one play, and Pete in particular just came at them cold without having seen the cards before.
Yeah.
And I think, well, Pete, what do you think?
I think, so looking at Blackpowder himself, I had some knee-jerk reactions to these guys, and I was saying them to Robin. I didn't post them anywhere online because I'm not that stupid or that proactive. But I did say...
Or allowed to.
Or allowed to, yeah. So, and I did say, oh, I think it's rubbish that all of these four fighters get this special ability that can destroy all your upgrades. That's too powerful. This is a thing that everybody else has to get upgrades for, blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. And Robin said, I think you're talking nonsense. And it turns out, after playing these games, I do think I was maybe talking a little bit nonsense.
Well, I think, in your defence, I think you were thinking of it in a more championship way. And I was playing it having looked at the Rivals deck. And I think with Rivals, because they're lower glory scoring, there's less upgrades to play, and it's less painful to your plan if you don't play so many upgrades.
And interestingly, when you play obviously the Illusion deck, there's very few cards in the tool, and that really.
You did actually inspire somebody in one of the games.
I did.
Spoiler there, but
you did.
Yeah, you did. But yeah, I think I quite like them, and I think the balance seems to be quite good. We played against Hrothgorn, and Hrothgorn, I think.
Ogre v Ogre.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to spoil this a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched
spoilers
it, you want to,
from here on out. Do check those battle reports out first.
I think he is. I think his deck is a little bit better.
I think he's just better with his deck. I don't know. I don't think it's bigger, but I think he's better with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think not only is Hrothgorn's deck a bit better, I think that he's a slightly better fighter.
Well, he inspires to 2 shields.
He inspires 2 shields, and he inspires to 3 hammers, 3 damage, which makes him, whilst it's only range 1, makes him much more accurate.
And I don't know how you found it. I feel like the Grundabus is a bit of a trap because you've got to use your swag counters, and you're only doing 2 damage, which is not that great.
Interestingly, there is an objective in their deck,
thing we discovered,
which we kind of realised afterwards, called. So it's called Eyes on the Prize. You score it in an end phase if you have 3 or more swag counters.
And when you if you've got 6.
And when you score this objective card, if you have 6 or more, you gain 1 additional glory point. So that's potentially 3 glory for having 6 swag counters, or 2 for having 3 swag counters. If your ogre dies early, or even mid-game, the chances are you may not have burnt through many of your swag counters. And there are cards in here which enable you to gain more swag counters. I possibly came very close to scoring that, but didn't, because I hadn't realised how easy it was.
No, I think you might have played for it if you...
I possibly would have.
It would have been really hard in the Illusory Might deck, because when you did game 1...
But there were a few cards where it's like your next attack gains
There's at least one you basically automatically get a swag token.
Yeah, there's one where one of your minions makes an attack and then you gain a swag token for it, and there are a few others where you can get it. So I'd almost be tempted to not use his Grundabus, whatever it's called, his gun,
to score that objective,
and just try and rack up as many as you can.
Because it's interesting. I think it's one of the frustrating things I find about the game. It's a subtly different implementation of the same sort of rule. So there's a token mechanic where the tokens don't go on the card; they just go off to one side. Yeah. And I guess you could say the ritual token is like that, but I feel like normally they're connected to.
They're normally connected to a fighter.
Once the fighter is out as action, you can't use them anymore. But the swag tokens are not the same.
Yes.
I mean,
technically, I guess I think the ritual counter does go on to Grashrak.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there will be implementations that are similar, but it feels like to me very much the leader-led ones. Once the leader's dead, I guess you can't really use them.
You've got the tokens from the Skelly Boys from season 4, the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. You get those counters. Yeah. I can't remember the tithe counters. So that is a little bit similar to these. But
we're talking otters.
But that's it.
It's funny. It doesn't explicitly say it anywhere, but we both made the assumption that you had to have Blackpowder alive to make any use of the swag tokens. Actually, you don't.
No. And in some ways, I mean, the attack's 3 swords, 2 damage. It is range 3. Possibly that's better against more numerous warbands, and you might want to go that route. But it's
against
still quite hard.
Warband, it's pretty good. But you have, you've got to use a token one, and once they've gone, they're gone.
And your token only comes about when you actually break an opponent's upgrade, which isn't that easy with fighters
No.
Yeah, so I'm on the fence about that mechanic, and I think what I thought originally was great, I think they've actually been quite good with in balancing.
It seemed pretty balanced. Apart from my stupid dice rolls, I think you'd have won the second game we played. It seems pretty balanced with the new rivals deck that they brought out. They seem quite in good balance with each other. The Soul Raid are pretty strong. And I did win, but it wasn't by
miles, and it was a clutch crit that turned the tide in the end, I think. So there you go. I haven't had a chance to look through the Illusory Might deck too much, but I think I like the fact that it's quite themed. I think the previous Rivals deck that we got given, which was the Silent Menace deck, wasn't awesome.
It's like a proto.
Yeah,
like almost like a half an idea, and they didn't implement it.
It was.
Well.
Whereas I like that in this one, you've got a lot of illusion cards in there, obviously, which you'd expect. You've got a lot of cards that play into that as well. You've got a card which enables you to look through your deck to find an illusion card.
There's a couple of different ones.
There's another one where you can burn some of your cards to then pick one up from your discard pile.
Which is really solid, actually. That card that won me the game.
Yeah, and there's an objective in there which is you have basically you've used one of your illusion cards during that round, and then it's in your discard pile at the end. So
yeah, you have to not have any upgrades.
Yes,
but there are only if you're playing Rivals. I think there's only there are maybe 3 upgrades that don't have illusion on them. So chances are you're not going to have played it.
Yeah, or you just wait till the end of the round, score the glory first, and then play them. Yeah. So I really like the idea of that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of those kind of format decks to see how they play.
It's more interesting to me than the deck building aspect of it now. If somebody else was building interesting decks that all meshed together to play nicely. Okay, I'm not expecting every deck to play equally well in every warband, but if you could play each deck with maybe even just 2 or 3 or 4 warbands and have a good fair game against somebody picking similar things with other warbands, I think this game could run forever for me without any need for deck building at all.
Yeah, to be honest, for me,
I do have a massive headache now.
I suspect
I did get a bit stroppy in game 2.
I suspect you would have that headache regardless of what we played, because
I probably would.
Before this game we said, right, let's not worry too much about this, it's for fun and we're not going to get too serious. And then by the end of the first game Robin was just sitting there.
First game was all right.
First game wasn't too bad,
but it was. I thought I was just annoyed with myself because I made a mistake, and I think that's what pushed me over the edge.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Illusory Might deck. I think it works quite well. It's got some objectives in there which are just like playing to standing on objectives or being in cover. Actually, not standing on objectives at all now, being in cover. It interestingly does make me think that they've started to get rid of the whole idea of being on objectives. It's not very much
it's interesting
with that now.
No, there are a couple in here where you have to be like on the objective that is the round number and things like that. Yeah. But I've got that impression from both decks actually that there's some to do because you've got some to do with feature tokens rather than objectives.
Rather than objectives.
So it's almost like because cover hexes is great because you've even got extra ways of having cover hexes, but feature tokens still is brilliant because it doesn't matter which one you're on. It's almost like they've worked out how to do away with this numbered objective mechanic that they had from the beginning and they didn't really want. They've kind of worked out how to get rid of it. I
think the only reason they've kept it is because there are a few warbands that have things that matter. Yeah. Like the Banshees, they have to have standing on an odd and an even numbered objective.
And, Grimwatch too. But otherwise, I think we're going to see more of this standing in cover, standing on feature tokens, and almost like the numbers from now on are going to be irrelevant.
For a lot of warbands,
I quite like that because it makes it easier to build interesting combinations, I think.
I don't think the deck is super powered. I don't think it's really imbalanced and an auto take. But I think it's got a lot of interesting news to it to really get you interested in working out which warband maybe plays better with it. I don't think it's like automatically just picking the biggest horde warband like your Gits or your Thorns or something. I don't think.
No, well, there's a couple of cards, or at least one card that they just can't. Horde warbands can't just can't score because there's one about you have to. It's a surge for having an illusion on every fighter. And I mean that's really hard anyway.
But then there's other ones which are about standing on certain objectives, so that kind of makes it harder for your more elite 3 or 4 fighter warband. So it's almost like they've built it such a way that it doesn't matter which one you take. And if you go for a real middle of the row 5 to 6 fighter warband thing, you're probably going to struggle with it. And I quite like that because then that means that you're not going to have an obvious you take this deck with that warband and you've got a really imbalanced
It's
sort
good with
of
the
thing.
Soul Raid. It's good with the Soul Raid because they've got the fish that can float around and just stand on cover hexes.
Yeah, that's true. That does help. It's
Yeah.
all reds, all reds, all reds, all red.
But yeah, I enjoyed those decks. I like the design in them, and I like the design in Blackpowder. I do feel like they've dialed back the power of the game.
And I don't know if it's
Rivals.
just because we're only playing Rivals, and it's, you know, it's just because rival decks in general are a little less powerful than championship decks, because you just get what you get in that warband. So you're always going to have a few cards that are a bit, ooh, I wouldn't take this normally, kind of options. Like there's one in the Hrothgorn deck which is a spell almost, where you roll a spell dice. Like if you get this, then you do a damage to him. Like,
you'd never take that really.
Yeah.
I think the deck building takes away. I mean, people love it, obviously, and I enjoy it to a degree. But I think a good deck build takes away the randomness. It takes away the weaknesses of your warband. It means you can ignore the weaker side of your warband because you just pile everything on the strengths. And you can't do that with a rivals deck, so you have to play around your weaknesses. You have to, you can't rely on like a good deck, especially at the height of certain eras of the game. Basically, you could just go bang, 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 bang. I'm scoring.
You just knew you had your set piece that you just do this and then ding, 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 and then it all just fell into place.
And you can't do that with rivals, which I quite like. I prefer that too.
And I almost prefer playing like the rivals decks, like either the warband deck or the like the Illusory Might deck or whatever. I almost prefer playing that completely unprepared. You just
play it blind.
You just start playing. You pick up your cards, go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've got to do this now.
I'm going to draw into. Oh, right, this is completely rubbish.
And I think in that last game, I had a card where I got rid of one ploy because I thought, well, I don't need that because that's never going to happen. And I got rid of an upgrade because I thought that's never going to happen either. And then I picked up a power card that would help me with the upgrade, would help me with the objective. And then you did something and did an attack, which meant I would have scored the objective. So I was like, awesome, I'm really glad I got rid of those cards. But for me, getting rid of the prep by playing rivals makes this game 100 times better as far as I'm concerned.
I agree, and I think it helps you enjoy the mechanics of the board more rather than just. I don't know, but I don't play to a high level, so maybe I'm wrong. But I just feel like I think after actually
we're right as far as we're concerned.
Although we're saying it's quite, I'm not taking it so seriously. I think you do have to think more about what you're doing in order to make your deck work, to squeeze anything out of it.
Yeah.
You almost, I found if you get when we play with very efficient decks that other people have designed, you almost don't have to worry about it. It's like, well, I just charge over there.
You just know, I've got these cards. They the cards almost tell you what you need to do.
And it's charged through there, through that lethal hex, and I'm going to score 3 glory. It doesn't really matter. I don't even need to throw any dice.
Exactly. So, overall, for us, I think we've said it 100 times now, but Rivals is definitely the way we're going to be enjoying this game going forwards.
Yeah.
And I think if you're remotely casual and you're not into deck building that much, it's the way to play.
That said, I was sorting out my cards today, and I did get a sort of slight wistful kind of, it would be interesting to see with what, because I think the card design has got better, except for the bloody Arena Mortis cards, which I still think there's one set left in.
Yeah.
I think the card designs have got better.
I have to say, when I was looking through some of the universal cards that came with Blackpowder,
Oh yeah.
not a staring at all.
Okay.
None.
Nothing. Not even a semi.
No, nothing. There wasn't a twitch.
Right.
I looked at the cards, thought they're quite nice.
Yeah.
I don't care that much.
Well, I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I think we're rambling on now, but I do think there is a definite what's the word? I can't think of the word, but where you at the same time don't want really powerful cards, but when the cards aren't really powerful, you just look at them and go,
oh, this is rubbish.
Like,
I want a really nice card. I can see that
because they are all very vanilla. The cards in the universal cards are very vanilla, particularly the Grand Alliance card. I don't think I've seen a good one yet. So that
partly is, again, puts me off of it, because it's like, well, I'm not going to take these ever. So why did they even waste the ink and the card to produce this?
That's what I kind of feel like as the good cards cycle out, and we'll get to the point where there are very few left. There may be deck building become more interesting again. But as I said, if Rivals works, and you can get good combinations. You only need each deck to work with 2 or 3 combinations, or just have a few 3 or 4 balanced warbands, and you can have almost endless fun games.
Yeah,
without everything.
Having said that, I saw somebody put a comment on Facebook today, and they said, you know, what do people prefer? And overwhelmingly, a lot of people were saying deck building all the way for a lot of people. So.
I think a lot of people love the deck building aspect, and that is fine. You're entitled to that opinion, even if it's wrong. No, I think, and I can totally see why. And people, that in itself is a puzzle. People like to spend that time.
That's a game.
The puzzle, and I always say with always say, it'd be very boring if that's all I ever said. But the really good players basically are looking for ways to break the game.
Yeah,
and that is a puzzle. Working out how best to
abuse, but within the rules.
The tools you've got, use the tools, the best tools you've got to for the most efficiency. And that I don't have the time or the inclination to do that, or the brain power, frankly, which really is the first one. The third one interforms the other two.
Yeah.
But if you love it, then go for it. But I think where, especially as it's still quite difficult to meet, I think where Harrowdeep is going to keep going is if he can keep getting new players in. To play it. And I think Rivals is a way to
being able to take like that deck, the Illusory Might deck, and a Warband deck, and just take Gorlock's deck with him or whatever, and a Warband with their deck. You can go somewhere and just say to them, "Do you want to play a game? You know, pick one of these and we'll just play it." There's no prep, no setup. It's just
and in a world where costs are rising all the time, you save yourself some money because you haven't got to.
You haven't got to chase the meta. You're like, you can look and go.
I really like the Soul Raid. I'm going to play with them.
Exactly.
And I'm going to get the Illusory Might deck.
I don't sit there and see the Chosen Axes release and go, well, I've got to get them because they've got ready for action or being.
And actually, you could then argue that there's some more additional challenge in actually becoming very good with a warband with a deck is a different challenge to making the best deck to fit a warband.
Yeah, I think it's more challenging to take a bad warband and play them well with the hand they've been dealt, literally. You know, so but that's you know, that's maybe a whole discussion.
It's just another it probably is. It's just another way of playing the game, I think, which is I think always to be encouraged.
Gorlock, really happy with his cards. He's a lot less overpowered than I initially thought, and I like that. And I think he's got a few little nice tricks in there.
I'm not overly impressed with the minis, just to completely go off on a complete tangent. Gorlock himself has grown on me. Now I've painted him.
He's the biggest ogre.
He's not the biggest model. The other ones, I haven't put them together very well, but the other ones are just a bit boring.
One of them's just literally a Noblar with a dagger pointing. He's pretty dull. The monkey, I'm not a massive fan of the monkey model. I think it's a bit crap.
It is a crap, especially if you don't put it together properly. It's got a crack in his head.
The bird's okay, but again, I mean, I am not as excited about animals as a lot of people get. And the other Noblar's just a Noblar with some ropes around him. Yeah,
the rope's quite funky, but yeah, I'm not. These four certainly feel like the tray needed them.
Yeah, and you know, I have my own issues with having a big guy warband. That's a whole different issue in itself. But I don't think he's as overpowered as other big guy warbands because he doesn't go up to that 2 shield when inspired, which means he can still be very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think people fall into that trap of thinking his Grundlerbluss is a lot better, which maybe it's not.
Us. Well, we'll find out everybody else would have identified it was
Everyone's like, no one would ever use this in a million years. But then, like we say, nobody would ever take the eyes on the prize objective if you were building a championship deck. No. So doing that makes you suddenly think, do I do this, do I not? So there we go.
Yeah, I think overall, I feel the game is in a better place now than it was without these two back decks. The Illusory Might deck has got me excited for some interesting ideas coming up, and for balanced, interesting mechanics in the warband. I think Gorlock provides that. So on the whole, I think it's a good step for Harrowdeep and the game itself.
Yeah, and we had some fun games, so win-win-win.
Win-win-win.
So we see you soon, maybe in the Underworlds, maybe somewhere else in another gaming metaverse.